Jesus departed from where he was and moved over to the water in Judah across the Jordan. And here too crowds gathered about him to hear his message. Many of the usual questions were asked and similar answers given. One man put this question to him: Great teacher, is it lawful according to the great law for a man to put aside his wife? For there are other laws concerning this. Jesus answered, What did one of the great lawgivers, speaking with the authority of God, say about this matter? The man answered, The law he gave permitted a severance deed to be made, and with this the wife is divorced. Jesus said, Such laws are needful while men are without wisdom. I assure you it will not be so when the rule of God comes. They are made for those who cannot overcome differences by compassion and understanding. Where there is no feeling, there cannot be love. Divorce is decreed for failures in love. Since the beginning, there have been male and female, each needing the other for fulfillment and spiritual flowering. For this reason, man leaves his parents and unites with a woman, so the two become one in flesh and spirit. The flesh is easily parted, but with the united spirits it is different. Fornication occurs in marriage as well as outside it, for marriage is much more than the union of flesh. And whosoever divorces his wife and marries another commits adultery in spirit against the one who is his true wife. Should a wife divorce her husband and marry another, she too commits spiritual adultery. Marriage has a much greater significance than this depraved generation realizes, for it enters into marriage thoughtlessly and irresponsibly, and then cries, Loose us from our obligations, for we have failed and cannot stand the bonds of the covenant. After this, a disciple came to Jesus and said, Sire, enlighten me, for if there can be fornication in a marriage blessed by tradition and priest, do a man and a woman commit greater fornication if unblessed? Jesus said, Marriage is the blending of two spirits. Fornication is the joining of flesh. Nothing done or not done changes this. But if a man or woman be married in the sight of God and not before a priest, let this union not be lightly put apart. For I assure you that no future marriage, blessed by priest or otherwise, will be a marriage in spirit. It will be no more than fornication. The following morning, Jesus and 5 disciples had not gone far along the road when a man came running after them, saying, Sire, what must I do to know the joys of immortality and glory? I know you teach goodness, but though I do my best, I find it difficult among so many pleasures. Jesus said, You have the commandments of Moses. Keep these faithfully as interpreted by the fullness of the law. But to these 2 more are now added, which shall be just as faithfully obeyed. Act towards others as you would have them act towards you, and love your neighbor as yourself. The man said, If only I could be as good as you. Jesus answered, Do not call me good, for no man made in the mold of man is wholly good. If I were not made in the same mold as man, I would not be subjected to his tests and trials, and without overcoming these could not be wholly good either. When the man had gone, one of the disciples who came from beyond the western sea said, I have heard that 3 things only make men wholly good. But you have the holy books which I cannot read. Tell me of these things which are in them. Jesus said, Store these in your heart, for they are sufficient for the day. Never utter curses against God or the powers about him, nor speak immodestly to exalt yourself. Do not act fraudulently, and never exaggerate. Always maintain an even temper, and do not act hastily. Never use violence unnecessarily, nor do anything causing unnecessary sorrow. Avoid anything to do with lewdness and obscenity. Commit no slander, and speak no gossip. Never make mischief, so strife is brought into the lives of others. Tell no lies. Be humble about being servile, and be clean in all ways. Whatever you do to earn your bread, do to the best of your ability. Fulfill all your daily obligations, and in the time left to you, serve a cause which is good. Add these to the teachings you have heard, and you will live a good life. Another disciple said, A good man soon loses his friends. Jesus replied, No, goodness, like adversity, winnows them. One of the other disciples said, It is very difficult to live a life which is wholly good. Jesus answered, It is more difficult to enter into a greater life of the Spirit. The words surprised those hearing them, but Jesus assured the disciples about him that it was true, adding, Nothing worthwhile is ever easily gained. Jesus continued, Let all who can do so empty themselves of evil. The deeds are outside, but the thoughts are within. By striving hard and chastising the flesh, not yielding to the call of its lusts, the soul is strengthened by an inflow of spiritual food. Then Jesus asked the disciples with him if all understood that unless they could pass the tests of the flesh, they could not know heaven. All replied that they understood. A disciple asked, "How long must men be subject to death?" Jesus replied, "So long as women bear children." Another asked, "What is the food of the Spirit?" Jesus said, "The truly hungry man eats bitter things and enjoys them. Even so does the hungry spirit thrive on the bitterness of the world. The body is not nourished by bitterness, and therefore enjoys food supplied by every healthful plant. If the spirit is to be made healthy, the body must be subdued. For either the body is master, or the spirit is." One of the women, Salome, who had accompanied the disciples, asked Jesus, "Is it within the law for a man to marry and yet not lie with his wife?" Jesus answered, "It is never right to live falsely or to dishonor a pledge. Always let whatever be done accord with the intention declared." Salome said, "Sire, when will the rule of God come?" Jesus replied, "When women place greater value on the treasures they hold, for men will strive harder for gold than for brass. When man and woman cease to pander to the flesh and become truly one in spirit, for of this I assure you, unless man and woman exalt the spirit above the flesh, they will not know life and glory." Another woman asked, "Who then shall know eternal life?" Jesus said, "All will have eternal life, but not all will know it, while many will be found in a place of sorrow." She said, "No woman can make a man good." And Jesus replied, "Any woman can make a man better." When they came to a place of rest, Philip said, "Sire, teach us to understand our Father in heaven, and if we know his nature, it will suffice." Jesus answered, "I have been with you for some time, but still many of you do not understand. I do not speak of myself, but as the mouthpiece of the Father. Can the nature of a father be much different from that of his sons? I teach you about God the Father, for you have to carry my words to others, and spoken thus they will understand. But he is not quite like earthly fathers, for his wisdom is infinitely greater. Think of an earthly father, and magnify his greatness and goodness, his wisdom and justice, his sense of discipline and compassion about 1,000 times, and you can glimpse the Father hazily." One of the women, not yet a disciple, approached the place where Jesus sat and said, "I have been harshly treated by the law concerning a daughter's inheritance. How do you interpret it?" Jesus said, "I interpret all laws with mercy and compassion, but justice must not be put aside in their favor. It is written that if a man die without fathering a son, his inheritance shall become the daughter's, but his wife shall not be deprived of her portion. Yet when there are sons, a daughter is not deprived of her portion. Therefore the inheritance should be divided equally among sons and daughters. All women should have a rightful portion at marriage, but it would be unseemly for any woman to contend with her kinsman for it. No woman should ever seek a husband because of what she may gain from such marriage, for this makes her a deceiver, denying him the joy of love. No woman should ever snare a man into lust or seek a husband so she can leave her father's house, for this is a wrong against the husband. No woman having committed fornication should ever go to a man as wife, for in giving herself cheaply to one and dearly to another, she shames and insults her husband. If she loved him, how could she say, 'Give much for that which I freely bestowed on another'? Better for her to say, 'As with him, so with you.' A man built a house, taking care with the decorating and its furnishings. Then going to a friend, he said, 'Because of my affection for you, I will give this house to you as a gift. I know this is not usual, but I have so much affection for you that I will willingly disregard the common custom of men.' Later he built another house, and taking the furnishings, which were no longer new from the first house, put them into the second. Going to another friend, he said, 'I have a house which, because of my affection for you, I will sell at the usual price for a yearly rental with the furnishings.' Now, for which of these friends did he have the greatest affection? Would not the second man justly feel that he had been treated badly in relation to the first? Would it not be fairer to have treated both alike? The law is to wear the clothes of purity, and to absorb the words of the Holy Book is to be anointed with wisdom. For the holy books of wisdom are weavers, preparing the garments of eternal life and glory. They are available to all, and may be either accepted or ignored. The kingdom of heaven is like a king giving a wedding feast, who, moving about among his guests, noticed a man without a wedding garment. The king says to him, "My friend, why did you come here attired like this, when it makes you completely out of place?" The man can make no answer, so the king calls his servants and says, "Turn him out, for he does not fit in here." Let all men be just and merciful towards one another, for all who are will not be overlooked in the life to come, but those who act otherwise shall surely suffer. Those who pander to people in high places, or who distort the law of God to suit their own ends, or twist them to serve unintended purposes, shall not be overlooked at the accounting. There are those who interpret the law narrowly, so that, while not taking the clothes from their widow's back, they will take her house, and milk cow, and drive her fatherless children from their home, and justify themselves by saying, "That is the law, and was not her husband a debtor?" Many are the devious roads followed by the hypocrites, and this is a wrongful interpretation of the law. The holy books of the Jews say that an eye shall be taken for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, but the words of the law must be interpreted with justice. For if an eye be taken from he who puts out another's, or a tooth from someone who has knocked out the tooth of another, is the loss made good in this manner? Or if a one-eyed man cause him with 2 eyes to lose one, shall he be made blind, and so suffer a greater loss? Or if a man with 2 eyes cause a man with 1 eye to be made blind, shall he lose both? Henceforth let the loss be made good in silver and through labor. And now the law of revenge shall be overruled by the law of retribution. All laws shall now be administered under the rule of recompense. All these things I give you, that they may be established and added to the law, so that henceforth they can be used in judgments among the just. I come to open the blind eyes of ignorance, and rescue the captives confined in dungeons of delusion, and to free men from the shackles of the flesh. I come to quicken the dead in spirit, and heal the wounds of worldly woes, and to comfort the despairing. About this time some of the Perishim who had inclined toward Jesus came to him to warn him that certain men of Herod sought to do him harm, advising him to leave. Jesus says, "If anyone intends to report my whereabouts to Herod, let him do so, but I will not leave until the 3rd day, when my work here will be complete." Then he went with his disciples to Alon, where he rested there among the trees for 7 days, teaching them the secrets of hidden things. On the 7th day, men of Kadesh came out to Judah, and Jesus said, "Beware of these, for they betrayed their own fathers and pollute whatever is clean." Then Jesus and those with him departed.